original pre-production Cleo de Nile. She is now in my little hands. I have a new hobby. It is doll collecting and customizing. I've already rearranged my YouTube background to feature my new doll shelves. As someone who has been running a cosplay YouTube channel for the last 5+ years, and now has a bunch of little dolls, of course I'm going to be cosplaying my dolls! I will be making a G1 Cleo de Nile cosplay to match my pre-production doll. The good news is I have already cosplayed Cleo de Nile before, so I have a number of accessories already done and ready to go. Last year I did Cleo de Nile's Fearleading look, so I already have her mummy wraps and her earrings. I have a tutorial for how I made those if you would like to check it out. And earlier this year I did a formal look for Cleo, so I bought some very expensive Monster High shoes, and I got her wig and her headband and jewelry. I need to make her underclothes, like the undershirt and pants, and I need to make this sparkly blue halter top and a handful of little accessories. If you haven't already noticed, I put all my dolls in Barbie wheelchairs just to feel something, so here's her wheelchair. For the mummy wraps, I have some leftover fabric from when I made her Fearleading mummy wraps last year. So this is that fabric, which clearly there's not enough left to make a whole shirt and pants set and all the bandage wraps over it. However, I have another 2 yards or so of the same exact fabric I used for the mummy wraps. This just has not been dyed brown yet. For her sparkly halter top, I have a sequin stretch velvet fabric. Then for the tulle part of her halter top, I have this really sparkly tulle fabric. As far as patterns go, I think I'll be able to just kind of wing it with the patterning and it'll just work out. That's how I imagine it working. First thing we need to do is I would like to dye the white mummy wraps fabric in coffee so it matches everything I've already made. I already discussed how I did this in the tutorial where I made her mummy wrap accessories, so I'm not going to go into too much detail here. Our mummy wrap fabric is drying, so I can't do anything on the underclothes for now, but I can start patterning out the top. For patterning out the halter top, I'm just draping an old t-shirt over my dress form. It's just a strip of fabric going from the neck, across the bust, and around the back. I will need to add 1 dart at the bust to shape this a little bit, and it will need a side seam, but that's about it. So I have the pattern off the dress form, and it's just a weird shape. And I didn't have quite enough of that t-shirt to drape the whole thing. So I'm going to do a second stage mock-up of this, cut the whole thing out, make it so I can actually put it on my body instead of just pinned to a dress form. So this is our mock-up. I'm having it tie around the neck. That is how it's done on the doll. And then you have these pieces which go around like this. And I'm gonna sew these together in this shape so I don't end up with one boob cover up here and the other down here. I want to make sure they're always in this nice little X shape. Next step is to take that mock-up that you just worked on to make sure that it was a perfect fit, and we're going to tear it apart for pattern pieces. This sequin fabric will need a lining. A lining fabric will provide just a little bit more structure, and it will also protect the underside of this fabric, which has all the stitching that holds the sequins in place. For the lining fabric, I just grabbed something from my stash. This is the Cosplay Fabrics 4-Way Matte Stretch, and I have so little of this to spare, but I did have just barely enough. When cutting sequin fabric, you want to be careful about the direction that the sequins lay. You need to make sure the sequins are laying in the same direction for all the different pattern pieces. You know who will never leave you, no matter what? Sequins. I only cut out 2 pattern pieces, and look at all there's so many blue sequins. And on top of that, look, under the couch, I can already find pink ones. left over from my Flora build. There's still pink sequins. In order to have a really clean seam, you need to rip out the sequins within the seam allowance. Otherwise, you'll sew through these sequins and they'll just pucker up really weird and kind of poke out of the seam. Also, for the dart, I have seam ripped out all the sequins that lie within that dart area. After all the sequin tearing is done, it is finally time to sew my favorite part. And I have a little doll-sized sewing machine for Cleo so that she can also sew along, of course. I'm sewing up the dart and the side seams, and then I'm doing the same on the lining layer, attaching those together. And I am doing a black bias tape along all the edges. Comparison, I think it looks nice. This is just really hard to tailor. Who's to say it shouldn't fit more like this or maybe more like this? So I think I'm gonna hold off on finishing this top and instead switch gears to the undergarments so I have something I can attach this to. This is the mummy wrap fabric that I dyed previously. This is the color I was trying to match. And this is the color I got. This is definitely fine, especially because they're supposed to be like mummy wraps sitting in a tomb for 5,000 years. This is actually like a jumpsuit sort of thing. The reason this doll has a jumpsuit is because this doll has never been to a convention and had to pee very badly and had to take off the entire costume in a restroom stall. So instead, I will be making this as a separate pants and tube top sort of thing. I did actually pull out a singular commercial pattern. This is the McCall's M6173 legging pattern. And for the top, this is just one of my camisole tops that fits pretty well. So I'm just going to lay this out and cut around it. It is easier to add all my little bandage strips to the pants and the top before they are sewn into pants or top. Ah! Pin in my butt! Ah! But I didn't want to make a mock-up, so I decided the best thing to do was to just pin this on my leg. Next up is just adding all our little bandage wraps onto the pants and sewing those down. And then I can finally sew the pants together once it has all the little bandage strips. I am walking the fine line between trendy Y2K fashion and this person has been deceased for over 5,000 years. Properly hemmed mummy bandages didn't make sense. But on the other hand, I still want the craftsmanship to be clean. So I am serging the inside of everything. Final step is adding the waistband and threading a 1-inch elastic through it. Pants are done! They fit really, really well. For just cutting out this pattern and not making any adjustments to it, these are super, super comfy. It is just like wearing leggings. I guess the undershirt would be next. This is exactly the same process for the pants, but easier because it's just a tube. You know what Cleo needs? She needs a whole craft room. So this very back corner of the desk, I don't need it too much for fabric runoff, at least on a project this small. So she has her own little craft room. Let's take a tour. So she has 2 machines. These are both sewing machines, but just imagine it's like a sewing machine and a serger. Okay. She has a dress form to drape her costumes with a little tape measure so she can work on her cosplay and con crunch. It looks like the sparkly halter top does line up pretty well with this undershirt, so I'm going to probably just hand sew these 2 together. This is a good time to talk about adaptive design. Adaptive design is designing a garment for disability to make it more accessible. How am I going to get dressed into this garment? That is the question. So just looking at the design, it could look better or make sense to put the design on over the head, right? Just put it on over my head like a little camisole top and put on the halter top over my head. What you guys don't know is that putting on tight fitted shirts over my head strains my shoulders. I will tend to pull this muscle right here in my neck, trying to like squirm into these little shirts. So instead I'm going to design this differently. I'm actually going to take some inspiration from how the doll does closures in the back. So the tulle part is completely split down the back and there's a closure to open her up, right? And then similarly, there is a closure also in the back of the top. I specifically prefer really big separating zippers. They look like this. I try to get zippers that have the little hole in the pull tab. I can use this. This is an adaptive tool and I can just hook on and pull it open or shut. It has been about a week since you guys last saw this background and there's already more dolls there than before. I think that tells you all you need to know about my doll obsession that's happening right now. Tulle isn't particularly fun to work with, but another thing is it's very, very sheer, obviously. So a single layer of tulle is almost invisible. I am doubling up the tulle. I will need to attach those two layers together. I think I will do a rolled hem along all the edges to kind of finish it off and attach all our layers together. And then I will need to add the lace. And then finally, the tulle will get sewn into our sparkly top. Next, I would like to work on accessories. There aren't too many accessories I need to make since I already have a lot of them from my previous build, but I will need to make her little bicep band and her phone holder that goes around her leg. And then I'm really excited to try and make her phone. And then she also has a gold belt, but I'm just going to use a plain belt that I have laying around. So you can see it's kind of the older style phone where it has all the keys in the front. It's not a smartphone. It has some rhinestones around the edges. On the back is the Monster High Skullette. I bought this for $12. So this is the older Nokia phones. I'm just gonna use this as a prop. I just think it's cool to see one of these again. It's been so long. For the Skullette design, I am just taking this off the back of the box that my doll came in. I know, doll collectors, shield your eyes. I am not an in-the-box collector. I throw all the boxes away, or I use them for art. I don't keep them. But we do have a little Skullette design we can use, and it is a pretty good size. It's just about the right size for the back of the phone. I am going to paint everything gold. I bought some Heat Fix gold rhinestones so that I can rhinestone this. I think it's super cute compared to the little baby plastic phone that Cleo has. Moving on, our cell phone needs a cell phone holder. And I found this in my husband's trash. This is a box for a personal in-ear monitor belt pack. Wow. It is a little bit too big for our Nokia phone, but I'm in luck because the box also came with some packaging on the inside. So I chopped the box in half. I chopped apart the inside insert, and that seems to hold our phone really well. So now I have a box. As far as attaching this box to our leg band, I just got a piece of wire and I bent some wire and glued it to the inside of the box. I'm gonna cover our phone box with Warbla, and then it's just priming and painting from there. Moving on to the bicep band, this is pretty standard 2mm craft foam for both the base and the details. Cover it in Warbla, prime and paint. And then moving on to our leg band. I am sewing this out of the Yaya Han metallic stretch fabric. And Cleo has quite a few scallops as trim, so I'm gonna sew some scallops. I do not like sewing scallops, but I did see a trick some cosplayers use where they sketch out the scallops on the fabric and they sew it and then they cut the scallops out. I made sure I clipped all the corners on my scallops before turning them inside out, top stitched everything, sewed our little leg band together. Cleo has all these little raised gemstone details. She has 3 black ones on the phone cover. She has them all around the leg strap. She has a number of gems on her bicep band. So I have these sew on rhinestone type things. So I think I'll just use these and glue them on, sew them on, just for a little bit of added embellishment. And it is time for the final reveal of my G1 Cleo de Nile cosplay. Oh my raw! Cleo does not receive text. Cleo sends the text. I cannot be out of the loop. I am the loop. She finally finished a costume, everybody! Yeah! Final thoughts on Cleo de Nile to match my doll. This girl likes to accessorize. I didn't really realize it until I was putting all the pieces on this morning, but there are so many accessories to this costume, and I was a fool to ever think I could have gotten this whole thing done in 2 weeks, because that was my original timeline. It actually took me about 2 months, but overall I'm just super pleased with how this turned out. I think it looks just like the doll, just like Cleo de Nile, and she is my favorite Monster High ghoul, so I'm just so happy I got to bring her to life. I do have a few fixes I want to do. First of all, the bicep band definitely needs fashion tape or something. It will stay in place for pictures, but when I do wheelchair dance, there was a moment the bicep band slid down to my elbow and then I bent my elbow and I nearly snapped it in half. If you have been enjoying the doll stuff, I want to let you know that I do have a doll specific account on Instagram. It's Dolling Doll Play. So Dolling Doll Play if you want to just see doll stuff from me. Colleen Cosplay still has all of my cosplay stuff, and if you'd like to see a little bit of both the doll stuff and the cosplay stuff, you're in the right place. YouTube has all of the videos I make, no matter the content. So thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you all in the next video. Bye!